Welcome to this explainer on mastering raspberry plant support. You know, if you grow raspberries, you're probably well aware that they can turn into an unruly, tangled jungle in no time flat. But today, we're going to break down exactly how to tame that jungle using wire structures. We'll make sure you get those abundant, disease-free harvests year after year. Let's be real for a second. Is there literally anything worse than wading through a thorny, completely overgrown raspberry patch, getting your arms all scratched up, just to find half your berries are already rotting on the ground? Yeah, it's the worst. Because unmanaged canes, they naturally just flop over under the weight of their own fruit and leaves. And the second that fruit touches the damp earth, rot and mildew take over. But by simply elevating and organizing these plants, we absolutely change the game. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover why you need to support your raspberries, the essential tools and materials, how to set up your wire structures, specific tying techniques and steps, maintenance and common mistakes to avoid, and then we'll wrap up with some final tips. Let's jump right into section 1, why support your raspberries? So trellising actually lifts the plant into its optimal growing zone. By pulling those canes upright, you're keeping the fruit off the soil, which instantly reduces waste from rot and fungal infections. You're also opening up the canopy. This is a big deal because sunlight can penetrate deeper, which ripens the berries so much more uniformly. Plus, better airflow dries out that morning dew way faster, significantly dropping the risk of disease. And honestly, it just saves your arms from getting completely scratched up come harvest time. And check this out, because there's actual academic weight behind these techniques. We're looking at research from a University of Arkansas master's thesis comparing a standard T trellis with an advanced rotating crossarm, or RCA trellis. The data is super clear. Optimizing your trellis system actually leads to higher average berry weights. But what's even more fascinating, the research showed lower fruit infestation rates by spotted wing Drosophila, which is a major berry pest, and lower rates of fruit decay. So literally, how you structure your plants directly impacts pest pressure. Mind-blowing, right? Moving on to section 2, essential tools and materials. Think about it. A mature raspberry crop, loaded with fruit, soaking wet from a heavy rain and blowing in the wind, it can weigh an unbelievable amount. So to build a lasting structure, you absolutely need heavy-duty materials. You're going to want high-tensile 12-gauge galvanized steel wire for your main bearing lines. And your end posts, they must be robust. We're talking either heavy-duty metal T-posts or treated wood with a minimum diameter of 15 centimeters, just to handle that massive tension. Now, when it comes to the actual tying materials, you've got two really great options. On one side, you have your classic manual tying. Using biodegradable twine like jute or even repurposed baler twine is fantastic. It's cheap, it's weather-resistant, it works. But on the other side, we have mechanical tying, using what's called a tape-a-tool. This little device uses a stretchy PVC tape and metal staples. And let me tell you, it is an absolute game changer for larger patches. It makes the job so incredibly fast. All right, let's dive into section 3, setting up wire structures. So this breaks down the three main structures used by growers globally. First, you have the I trellis. It's a simple single line of posts, but it can kind of crowd the plants right in the center. Then there's the T trellis, which uses crossbars to hold parallel wires. This pulls the canopy wide open, which is amazing for easy picking. But the V trellis, that one is particularly incredible. By angling the posts outward to form a V shape, you can tie your older fruit-bearing canes to the outside wires. This leaves the entire open center totally free for your new, first-year canes to shoot straight up into the sunlight without fighting for space. Okay, I want you to burn this number into your brain. 60. That's 60 centimeters or roughly 24 inches. Why? Because this is the absolute minimum depth your intermediate posts need to be buried in the ground if they're going to withstand those heavy winds and massive crop loads. And for your larger end posts, those should ideally be down at 90 centimeters and angled just slightly against the tension of the wire. Now, spacing your wires correctly on those posts is absolutely vital. Typically, you're going to want 2 levels of wire. The lower wires, which you'll set between 60 and 90 centimeters from the ground, act as positioning guides. They keep those young, floppy canes nice and vertical. Then, your upper-bearing wires, sitting higher up at about 120 to 150 centimeters, well, they do the heavy lifting. They take the brunt of the mature fruit weight right at the top of the plant. Let's move on to section 4, tying techniques and steps. If you're going for a fast manual approach, the no-knot spiral method is fantastic. You basically just anchor your twine at the end post and then you weave it. Bring it over the wire, behind the raspberry cane, cross it under the wire, and just pull it slightly tight to lock it in place. Then you move right down the line to the next cane, spacing them about 4 to 6 inches apart. And the brilliant part? At the end of the season, you literally just snip the twine at the ends of the row and pull the whole thing out. Seriously, no untying dozens of individual knots. Now, if you live in a super windy area, you might want to look into the figure 8 knot. You tie your twine directly to the wire, cross the strands right in the middle to form an 8, and then tie a double knot securely around the cane. That cross in the middle, it acts like a perfect little shock absorber. It physically buffers that soft green raspberry stem from grinding against the hard steel wire during a heavy storm. But hey, if you value pure efficiency, those mechanical tape head tools we mentioned earlier, they are up to 5 times faster than tying by hand. It's so simple. You just squeeze the handle lightly to catch the tape, push it against the plant stem and the support wire, and then squeeze firmly. Boom! It staples and cuts instantly. And because that PVC tape is a bit stretchy, it actually expands as the cane thickens up over the summer, which means your plant is never going to get choked out. Okay, section 5, maintenance and common mistakes. So let's make sure we avoid some fatal errors here. First off, you gotta know that raspberries have incredibly shallow root systems. Never ever leave the ground bare in winter. You always want to use a mulch like aged wood chips or straw to prevent freezing. Also, never apply fresh manure. It will literally burn the roots and invite all sorts of fungi. Oh, and don't mix fresh wood chips directly into your soil either, because that actually starves the soil of nitrogen. Finally, keep in mind that raspberries are extremely sensitive to chlorine, so you definitely want to avoid any chlorine-heavy mineral fertilizers. And guys, post-harvest hygiene is absolutely everything for your trellis system. Remember, on flora cane varieties, the cane that just produced your fruit, it's gonna die anyway. So after harvest, immediately cut those old fruiting canes all the way down to the soil line and pull them out of the trellis. This massively opens up the canopy, letting the new green shoots just soak up that late summer sun, and it completely halts the spread of any lingering disease or fungal spores. And finally, section 6, final tips and our disclaimer. I really want you to remember this vital timing tip from the folks over at Growing Wild Roots. They say, try to tie up your raspberry canes before they sprout leaves. And it's so true. You want to do all your tying while the canes are completely dormant, usually in late winter or very early spring. Because if you wait until those little green buds or leaves have popped out, you are pretty much guaranteed to accidentally knock off those fragile buds while you're wrestling the canes onto the wire. You'd literally be knocking away your future fruit. And, of course, a quick disclaimer. Always consult your local gardening experts or extension resources. Climate and soil conditions vary so much regionally. The exact timing for when your ground thaws, when the buds break, and what pests are flying around, that all dictates exactly when you should be pruning, planting, and tying in your specific neck of the woods. This explainer is just here to give you a really solid educational foundation. So are you ready to implement these techniques and transform that tangled patch into a master-level harvest? Now that you've got the complete blueprint, everything from the science of canopy management right down to the exact knots and tools, how are you going to redesign your raspberry patch this season? Sure, it takes a bit of work up front, but I promise you, pulling those wild canes onto a structured trellis is going to reward you with the biggest, cleanest, and easiest harvest you've ever had. Go get those hands dirty.